Right, welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Full spoilers ahead for Michael Morbius. Apparently, we've got the whole plot leaked for the movie. Take it with a pinch of salt, but to be fair, a lot of this sounds legit. It sounds what Sony would do, and I can believe it. So, you've had your spoiler warning, but let's get right into the leaked plot of Morbius. This is, of course, the SpiderMan spin-off movie by Sony. Now, Morbius, the film begins with Michael Morbius receiving the Nobel Prize, and he collapses on stage during his acceptance speech. This is then where we, the viewer, get flashbacks to fill in the reasons as to why he's collapsed, and it sets the stage for the entire movie. We learn that he is unable to walk properly, he's bullied, and he gets taken under Emil Nikos's wing to help him and things like this. We then go back to present day, and of course, Michael's condition is getting a lot worse. It's why he's deteriorated on stage and, collapsed. Now, his wife, Adria Arjono's Martine Bancroft, tries to help Michael, obviously, finding the cure and just helping him along medicinally and things like this. But Michael Morbius is really losing patience. He knows he's getting desperate and he really needs to find a cure for himself. Now, obviously, the fact that he's disabled is a distance from the comics. He wasn't disabled in the comics, but it sets up a very sympathetic character. I don't hate this. It's dependent on what they do with the character moving forwards. So I don't really hate the fact that they're doing this. And I will say the fact that him curing himself, becoming the living vampire is the reason why he's able to use his legs again properly. It kind of makes sense. It makes for a compelling narrative there. But again, it's dependent on how it's handled. Now, of course, we're going to have a villain in this movie, and who is it? It's none other than Matt Smith. He plays Loxias Crown. So he comes into the fray, and we don't really know why until later on in the movie, but he confronts Morbius and presents him with a briefcase and his business card after telling Michael that he knows of a cure for his illness. Now, Michael Morbius, obviously, he's losing his patience. He's wanting more radical ways to cure himself. He opens the case and he finds a dead bat with an ancient, gigantic knife. Obviously, this piques his curiosity. This is apparently a cure for his illness somehow. So he tests the bat. Again, we see this actually in the trailer, or at least the testing of the bat in the trailer. Apparently, it's a vampire bat, but there's nothing special beyond it. So Bancroft, Michael Morbius's wife, isn't convinced, but Michael obviously calls Crown and goes, "What the hell's going on? What is all of this?" And it's there where Crown tells Michael Morbius of a cave in Brazil which has the properties needed to cure him. However, again, Bancroft, Morbius's wife, comes in and says, "No, don't go down this path. It's dangerous. It's going to lead to desperation. It's not going to be good for you. Don't do it." But Michael, he's desperate. He's having none of it. And he goes ahead anyway. Now, of course, in the trailer, we saw the moment that Morbius, gets the bat and gets the blood and things like that. There's not much more to it outside of that, apparently. However, there is a little bit of a darker route expected for this anyway, which definitely points to the film, leaning on some horror here and there. But again, remains to be seen because it is a Sony. The rating's not going to be, R. It's not going to be a hard R or anything like that. So it'll be horror-esque elements. However, when Michael Morbius heads to the mysterious cave with his helicopter, there is a voiceover from Crown which explains that what the Doctor needs to do. Which I guess is kind of played up as if they're speaking to one another. Obviously, Michael pays off the men who took him there to keep them silent. But apparently they all die anyway because the bats come out of the cave and they kill the men or they push them off the cliff, anything like that. Very strange, but whatever, who cares. However, Morbius from here passes out after one of the bats feeds on his bloodied hand. We see that in the trailer, and later he then heads to a cargo ship which is headed back to New York City, and that's how he gets back from Brazil. He hides himself on a cargo ship. Very strange, but never mind. We do see him wandering through Brazil in a daze, and this is his transformation beginning, but this is everything that Crown promised appears to have been accurate as well, so it's kind of explaining that. And it is a cure for his condition, which was obviously slowly killing himself. However, of course, he now has a very different condition, which, interestingly enough, the cargo ship that he is hidden on gets boarded by pirates, and this is where we start to see him come out as a living vampire. Now, obviously, there's a big battle on the cargo ship. It's something which we see in the trailer, actually. So all of those the pipeline alleys and things like that, that is on the ship. So the cargo ship Michael is on, that he's stowed himself away on, attacked by pirates, and that gives him the moment where he can go, right, I'm gonna break out all of these abilities. This is him kind of testing himself, or at least succumbing to his bloodlust. Anyway, he takes all the men out one by one, and apparently the entire thing is compared to something out of the Alien franchise, which is a nice comparison if it is true. Now, there is, interestingly enough, some moments where the character is obscured by shadow or shown attacking them with point of view shots only, and that obviously lends some credibility to past claims that Sony were going to be adding this more to a horror side. But again, I can't imagine there's going to be that much, because I don't think the rating is going to be that high for this film. But again, remains to be seen. However, we do get a very memorable shot from the trailer, which is Morbius, turning, we see him, and he jumps from the ship and swims back to New York City. So it does sound an awful lot like it could be, a centerpiece for the film, this whole kind of action set piece here. And I guess a lot of people would say would be an improvement over Venom and all of the kind of symbiote abilities and things like that as they were just driving around, which was played up more for laughs, which is a good, more leaning into the horror. I'm happy with that for sure. Now, we do get a cameo from J. Jonah Jameson, so this movie is set firmly in the MCU, as well as the SpiderMan MCU version, basically Tom Holland. So we head back to New York City, the Big Apple. Michael, super confused, goes into a bar and asks for an ambulance to be called for him. Now, while this is happening itself, he watches a TV, and there's a report from the dailybugle.net, J. Jonah Jameson talking about dead bodies which were found on a cargo ship. So it explains what Michael has just done, which to me actually sounds like we're probably not going to see too much of what Michael did if they are then further compounding it with a cameo. So again, that's just a guess, but again, we'll see. Now, there have obviously been a lot of rumours here and there whether J.K. Simmons would be a tie to pairing these movies together and things like that, but it does seem to be, so that's good. Now, later, Michael meets up with Bancroft and Nikos, but locks himself in a containment chamber to protect them, which again, we do see in the trailer. His bloodlust quickly becomes too much, but Martine Bancroft is able to knock him out and return her husband to his office while they attempt to figure out what to do next. So again, playing up that sympathetic villain archetype or trope. Now, interestingly enough, we do have Michael Morbius' accurate comic costume, interestingly. So, in his lab, Michael finds a tomb with a note stating, "All the answers you seek lie within, Lysias." And inside that is a skeleton wearing, and again, this is super unexpected, but there's a skeleton wearing a comic book accurate Morbius costume. Now, Michael Morbius laughs and goes around just continue testing his abilities, but the skeleton itself apparently wakes up and fights Michael before Michael crushes the skeleton's skull, which is crazy. I mean, that's super mental, but again, it's leaning into the element of horror and things like that, and it's an interesting way to cameo the comic accurate costume. Now, interestingly, and this is where it gets a little bit weirder, is the comic book accurate costume after Michael crushes the skeleton skull attaches itself to Michael Morbius, which actually sounds an awful lot like a symbiote, but we don't know if it is. It's probably not going to be, but super odd. However, then we get very much weird. Okay, Crown, so Lysias Crown is shown walking around sewers, Matt Smith covered in tattoos and wasting away before restoring himself by draining the life force from people on a subway train. Apparently, using his magical abilities, he then possesses Morbius and sends him after Tyrese Gibson's detective Simon Stroud, who's investigating the murders on both the ship and in New York City. So, again, we're going super strange here, but I like it. Again, it's all based in the execution. Now, Stroud obviously puts up a fight. He has a mechanical gauntlet, which we saw on the trailer as well, but apparently that's from Oscorp, so that's interesting, which is a company owned by Norman Osborn, but Nico, the doctor, or Dr. Nikos, is caught in the crossfire and then Michael snaps out of his trance and allows himself to then be arrested. So, a bit of a strange turn of events there. I'm very much surprised to hear Matt Smith will be covered in tattoos, wandering around a sewer. hey. Now, we did see Michael Keaton in the trailer, Adrian Toomes the Vulture, and he's in San Quentin State Prison. This is where Morbius actually meets him. And they reference the blip and jokes that it shortened his prison sentence. Crown later meets up with Morbius again and orders him to come find him, and he'll kill Martine, which sounds like he's kind of almost astrally projecting. It's just an apparition of Crown, but it's not outrightly stated. So he's definitely looking to kind of control Morbius as this entity, this living vampire. So of course Morbius takes control of all of his powers, and the living vampire breaks out of prison, floating around, surrounded by bats. So it's fine, I guess. Adrian Toomes, Michael Keaton, takes advantage of this and gets out of Dodge quickly, and also thanks Michael and tells him that he's going to be putting together a team if he would like to join, which is none other than, of course, the Sinister Six. Now, the Doctor himself, the Dr. Michael Morbius, actually isn't a villain in this movie. Isn't a villain by comparison to everyone else. Anyway, and he doesn't want to beef. He doesn't want to have a fight with Spider-Man or anything like that. So he refuses. But the Mac Gargan, which is Michael Mando, who is in Homecoming, joins Toomes, and that starts to set up the Sinister Six. Now, there is a big Venom 2 cameo, which is Cletus Cassidy, because he breaks out of San Quentin prison as well. So that's literally tying these movies together. Now, he's moved from San Francisco to New York, and it's hard to say whether this is because of the events of Venom or previously or something like that, but I would say it's, outside of that anyway. Now, the wig itself is actually not there, so that's good. Great, I guess, but who knows. Now, there is a final battle, which is between Morbius and Crown. They come face to face in New York City, and it is at this moment that Crown reveals the skeleton is his. It's his skeleton. The skeleton that kind of woke up, tried to kill him. He's actually a reincarnation of an ancient being. Okay, yep. And he now wants to use Michael to perform a ritual and live forever without constantly having to reincarnate. And he obviously becomes omnipotent in the process. So it's a little bit odd. And I would say this is where it really does fall apart. But hey, it's based on execution. Morbius fights Crown while wearing his comic accurate costume. And their battle takes place mostly in the air. So that'll be interesting to see kind of how that... Now, obviously, Michael Morbius manages to suck the life out of Crown and grows to apparently being 9 foot tall and completely out of control before his wife is able to calm him down, and he then becomes his normal self. Interesting. We do have some reshoots happening at the moment, which may change some of this, but sounds alright. Bit of a weird element from Crown there, but most of it sounds okay. Now, Spider-Man does have a role in this. Okay, so Morbius, of course, he's been, making headlines, running amok and things like this. And we knew that there was some kind of Easter egg to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and things like that. But it's not, no. That was just a placeholder, the graffiti and things like that. It was literally just a placeholder. It is Tom Holland's Homecoming costume. So Morbius walking past that, no, that's going to be the MCU version. We kind of knew that. Anyway, that's not really a huge surprise. Now, there are some Spider-Man references throughout the film, but not overly huge. Nothing along those lines. Nothing kind of appearances or anything like that. But there is one final tease, but there is apparently no post-credit sequence. So the final tease, Morbius, the movie concludes with Michael and Bancroft, his wife, at Nikos's funeral, while Stroud watches in the distance. And it seems like he's realised that the Doctor is a hero, and that Crown was responsible for the earlier attack back in New York. And the living vampire then travels through the city and lands on a billboard surveying his home. Now, again, we don't really know what's going on, but then apparently it seems that the web slinger is now a man on the run. So he is genuinely being framed for Mysterio's murder. And that's pretty much it, really, to be perfectly honest. There's no post-credit scenes, test screening anyway, so things could change. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Stay up to date on the world of pop culture and movie news by hitting the bell notification icon. Thank you so much. I've been Mr. H. Take care.